Hello, dear poets. Welcome to the Wise Owl Ides of March poetry reading session. I'm Rachna Singh, your host for the event and the editor of The Wise Owl, a literary and art e-magazine. First, I would like to extend my thanks to all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to be a part of this event. And a special thanks to Daun. She probably would have woken up at an unearthly hour to be a part of this session, right, Daun? So most welcome. So without further ado, let's get down to the business of the day. The theme of today's session, as you all know, is Ides of March. Most of us undoubtedly connect this with the assassination of Julius Caesar, thanks to the bard's well-known quote, beware the Ides of March. But we also know that this phrase has other connotations and associations as well. It refers to the Ides sheep, the sacrifice by Jupiter's high priest. It refers to the revelry and festivity associated with the feast of Anna Perenna. And so therefore it also refers to some kind of a renewal and rebirth. So our team at the Wise Owl thought it would be a good idea to see how the Ides of March is interpreted by our panel of poets. And I can assure you, I'm not disappointed at all. The poems that came in, I read through all of them and I was absolutely impressed because everybody had a different interpretation and somehow the poem was connecting the past and the present and making Ides of March relevant to the modern day as well. So let us start our poetry reading session now. I'll invite the poets in alphabetical order of their names to render their poem. And I would request you all to give a short context of your poem and how the poem relates to your interpretation of the Ides of March before you swing into a rendition of the poem. So our first poet of the session is Dr. Abin Chakraborty. He will be reading his poem titled Scripts. I'll just give a quick introduction to our poet and let me just pull up a slide for a minute and share that slide with you. So here we are. Can you see the slide?
No. No.
Is the slide not visible?
No.
Okay, just give me a second. Maybe I didn't press the share button at all. Yeah, my bad. Okay, here it is. Can you see it now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So Dr. Abin Chakraborty teaches English literature in Chandarnagar College, West Bengal, India. He has been writing for several years and his poems have been published in various popular as well as prestigious Indian and international publications. He is also the author of the scholarly monograph Popular Culture, published by Orient Black Swan in 2019. His scholarly articles have also been published in journals and anthologies from India and abroad. His collection of poems, Unlettered Longings, was published recently. He is the editor of Post-Colonial Interventions, an interdisciplinary online journal, and also one of the co-editors of Plato's Caves, an online platform that hosts an array of poetry, fiction, and non-fiction. And most importantly, he happens to be a regular contributor to the Wise Owl. And in fact, he is the Poet of the Month of the Aqua and Gold edition of our magazine. So Dr. Abin, the stage is all yours. Please go ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, Scripts by Dr. Abin Chakraborty.
Thank you. Thank you very much for such a generous introduction. I'm happy to be a part of this event, and my poem scripts, as Rachna ma'am has already mentioned, is influenced by, of course, the play Julius Caesar and the assassination of Julius Caesar in the play. Because in my mind, that assassination is also emblematic of the specter of political violence, which continues to haunt us in different ways with various disastrous consequences across the world. And my poem is a meditation on that. So let me shift now directly to the poem itself. It begins with an epigraph from Shakespeare's play Julius Caesar, where we see Cassius speaking. How many ages hence shall this our lofty scene be acted over in states unborn and accents yet unknown? The blood drips still, spilling from the Senate and its alabaster steps to theaters and cars and forests and huts and dark little alleys and unforeseen knives, all in the name of banners flown high that hide all the corpses now lost. But histories of Cinna, the poet who was killed wrongly for a namesake instead, or such others in prisons or tracks, stabbed or burnt or shot point blank, drown in the waves of Tiber or Bias, all without dirge or dates. Waiting at night for the approaching Ides, I courier my words to their unlettered graves, and bide for the scripts of tragedy or farce, which we are doomed to repeat. Thank you.
Thank you, Abin. That was beautiful. A very well-crafted poem as usual. And like I said before, your poem is connecting the past and the present, and it makes the Ides of March very relevant to the modern day world, very contemporary. Especially your reference to the unlettered graves, that was particularly powerful. So thank you so much. Okay, so let's move on to our next poet. The next poet in our lineup is Amita Paul. Just let me pull up her slide. Here we go. She is a Punjab-born, Patna-based, retired Indian bureaucrat who has of late begun to be recognized on various digital platforms for her original writings in different genres in English, Urdu, Hindi, and Punjabi. Her writings are imaginative, humane, socially relevant, ecologically sensitive, and public spirited, with what she calls occasional flashes of humor, ranging from sharp satire to gentle ribbing of her indulgent readers. She is also a regular contributor to the Wise Owl. Unfortunately, on account of some personal preoccupation, she's unable to join us today, but has requested our team to read out the poem that she has sent. So I will do the honors and read out her poem, which is simply called The Ides of March. The slide has a short extract of the poem. The poem is a little long. I'll just read it out for you. The chief high priest of ancient Rome, good old Pontifex Maximus, called Julius Caesar when at home, by Will Shakespeare was made famous. Because of Will, we came to know of something called the Ides of March. Fate chose that day for Jules to go, fat as he was and full of starch. Blood burst from Jules in plenteous streams, or so Marcus Antonius said when he was stabbed mid piteous screams turning the Roman forum red. Backstabbed by those he thought his friends. Et tu, brute, poor Caesar cried. Emperors often meet such ends. Assassinated, Caesar died. Brutus at first convinced the crowds that Caesar needed to be killed, covering envy in noble shrouds, being a politician's skilled. But Mark Antony turned the tide of public opinion so fast that soon enough old Brutus died. His dream of glory did not last. Now we at school and college too must learn both their speeches by heart and do what we are asked to do: recite, declaim, or play our part. And that duty we all fulfill, though long speeches our throats do parch, and we are writing poems still under the title Ides of March. Well, friends, write on, let your pens fly, but this too should be known to all. Shakespeare got Ides on the sly from cleric Nicholas Udal. Udal, teaching Latin to boys at Eton College, used Terence, a Latin poet, for the joys of learning classicals for reference. Translating Terence, Udal used the famous phrase, the Ides of March. But Will Shakespeare may be excused for his poetical démarche, for Caesar's story was the thread connecting Terence and Udal, and Shakespeare brought it to a head, perpetuating Ides for all. Now spring is sprung and March has come. Green leaves adorn the birch and larch. And though it wasn't fun for some, you need not dread the Ides of March. So if your collar is too tight or painful, being full of starch, unbutton it to set things right, and do not fear the Ides of March. So this is what Amita Paul says. And of course, there is all that bit of satire on skilled politicians of the modern world, as well as, the history and the historical context. And it absolutely walks the reader and the listener through the entire history of Ides of March. I really enjoyed the poem, and I hope all of you did too. So let's move on to our next poet. And the next poet is Daun Wright. She is here with her poem, Dark is the Night. So Daun, just give me a second to pull up your slide, and then you can start. So here it is, and a short introduction of Daun. Daun, also known as the Permissible Poet, is a podcaster and freelance creative writer. Daun pens poetry that speaks to the heart of our being, while allowing each reader to reflect on their life's journey. She lives in Ontario, Canada. So Daun, please go ahead. We are all waiting to hear you and your poem, Dark is the Night. Daun, have you lost the connection with Daun? So I guess she'll rejoin in a bit. Just a moment, let me see. She seems to have dropped out for some reason. Okay, so I think let's not waste time. Let's move to our next poet then. Next poet, I would invite Kala to read out her poetry. But Kala, give me a second to pull out your slide as well. Here we are. Kala is an expert in the Japanese genres of poetry, and today she is going to be reading out two sides of the spectrum. It's a mix of some haiku, some tanka, and a bit of haibun. But first, let me introduce Kala. Kala Ramesh, a Pushcart Prize nominated poet, is the founder and director of Triveni Haikai India and founder and managing editor of Haiku Katha Journal. Author of Haiku for Children, Beyond the Horizon Beyond, shortlisted for the Rabindranath Tagore Literary Prize in 2019. Her collection of poetry, The Forest I Know, was launched at the Jaipur Literature Festival in March 22. And she has been experimenting with a fusion of Japanese poetry and dohas, couplets with 24 sound units of the Indian saint poet Kabir. And the end result, I must say, is beautiful tanka dohas. Kala, it's such a pleasure to have you with us here today. And I'm really, really looking forward to your rendition of haiku and tanka.
Thank you so much, Rachna. And it's been a pleasure being with the Wise Owl. It's been a beautiful journey with you all. So thank you for having me. So would I have the time to read all the poems? Of course, they're all very short. The poems I sent you, it's okay if I read them?
Yeah, it's okay. Their small haiku is like barely 3 lines.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, okay. The moving finger writes, and having writ, moves on. Nor all thy piety nor wit shall lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all thy tears wash out a word of it. Omer Khayyam. My relation to this theme is going to be transience. Transience in the sense that nothing is ever permanent, and in haikai literature, we come to this theme from different directions. And what I would like to focus on is beauty in transience, which is called as mono no aware in Japanese aesthetics, and we use that a lot in haiku. Mono no aware is about beauty in transience, and the best example I can give is the cherry blossoms. They say cherry blossom stays only for a week and it just vanishes, and they wait for it for the next year for it to happen. So there is beauty even in transience, and that is what I'm going to be reading, poems relating to that. So let me go back to Omer Khayyam again. The moving finger writes, and having writ moves on. Nor all thy piety nor wit shall lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all thy tears wash out a word of it. Trees are poems the earth writes upon the sky. We fell them down and turn them into paper that we may record our emptiness. Khalil Gibran. The two sides of the spectrum. And then you have haiku, not taking more space than just 9 words, the most condensed poem in the world, being just strong on imagery. It's for such reasons that haiku is called the wordless poem. The power behind this little wordless poem is that it stops you in your track. It makes you pause, think, and see the world in a different way. Spring rain, halfway through my meal, a scoop of loneliness. Spring rain, Halfway through my meal, a scoop of loneliness. Falling leaves. If only sorrow could be contained in a palm. Falling leaves. If only sorrow could be contained in a palm. My fear, the darkness between stars. My fear, the darkness between stars. Scrambling for words, a bird song in flight, deep in me. Scrambling for words, a bird song in flight, deep in me. Autumn dusk, without any fuss, the end. Autumn dusk, without any fuss, the end of a yellow leaf. Autumn dusk, without any fuss, the end of a yellow leaf. All the above were haiku, and now I'll be reading a few tanka. Tanka is 1,300 years old art form. It used to be a poetic form, a lyrical form, a 5-line poem, which used to be sung those days when it was called waka. And generally they were songs of love. But now things have changed. We can write tanka on anything. And there is a beauty in tanka because it is a personal poem, whereas haiku states something in a detached manner. You do see emotion there, but here in tanka, the 2 extra lines adds to the emotion. A lingering breath through the reed fleet shapes his raga. A lingering breath through the reed flute shapes his raga. On night's inverted stage, the stars keep beat. A lingering breath through the reed flute shapes his raga. On night's inverted stage, the stars keep beat. Learning to swim. I'm told you'll know it for life once you learn. Learning to swim. I'm told you'll know it for life once you learn. Was it a different me then in my mother's womb? Was it a different me then in my mother's womb? Learning to swim, I'm told you'll know it for life once you learn. Was it a different me then in my mother's womb? Wishing I were wishing I were looped to a string, one red flight fluttering across the night twilight sky. Wishing I were looped to a string, one red kite fluttering across the twilight sky. An evening of tangled thoughts. An evening of tangled thoughts. Through branches, even this rugged moon looks tattered at the edges. An evening of tangled thoughts. Through branches, even this rugged moon looks tattered at the edges. I come to my last poem now. It's a very short haibun. Haibun is prose embedded with haiku. Cool Chennai. An uncut rock under the banyan, the memory. An uncut rock under the banyan, the memory. One Sunday in December, A frail man, almost 80 years of age, JK, as he is affectionately called, sits with his eyes closed under the famed banyan tree in his residence. There's pin drop silence as people wait for the master to speak. Birds returning to their nests go in and out of song. 45 minutes later, he looks up smilingly and says, "The birds have said everything I wanted to say today." Breathless across the river, the moon where I began. Breathless across the river, the moon where I began. All these poems are from my book, Beyond the Horizon Beyond, and the book of Tanka, which is The Forest I Know. Thank you so much, Rachna.
Thank you, Kala. That was
Thank
really beautiful. Haiku and tanka are short forms of poetry, but the imagery and the weight of thought behind it is so very powerful that it would, beat any long poem or an epic for that matter. I especially love that imagery of the moon tattered at the edges. It's really beautiful. So I really wish you the best in your endeavor to promote this beautiful genre of poetry. Thank you so much, Kala.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Dawn came in for a bit and then she's again dropped out. Are you there, Dawn? So
I am.
You are? Okay, great. So Dawn, let's hear you finally, yeah. So let me pull up your slide so that, yeah, here you are with Dark is the Night. So Dawn, please go ahead.
This poem was a contrast of day and night, and it just speaks to the darkness in the recesses of our minds, that even Julius Caesar's friend Brutus could, because of the darkness that exists in his mind, because it's always light and dark, good and bad. And so it just speaks to the contrast of day and night. So in the night, things familiar becomes things feared. The sun shines its rays, exposes things in the day, but loses its brightness as dusk falls. Dusk deepens. As the hours grow later, moon and stars make their entry. They're bright, and you see, but not with the clarity of day. And evil lurks in the dimly lit areas where predators hide, the ones who rape, steal, and kill. At night, bodies sleep, but there are some who roam like nomads, the ones who sleep evades. Some function best at night or in the dark. It's almost like a sinister secret while the rest of the world sleeps. One wonders, what can be achieved in the night? Ladies of the night ply their wares, hotel, factory, and hospital workers on the graveyard ship. Cops raid compounds and hunt criminals. Strippers wrap themselves around poles to entice eyes that cannot sleep but are looking for something to titillate their minds. Images stay frozen in the memories of those who watch. Night, innocently created as the opposite today, become an avenue, a road, a street, a crescent, and a setting where bad things happen. What is it about the night that makes the stars seem to pierce the clouds, yet seem so distant but hold such promise that you wish? The moon shines in all her splendor over an ocean, but those who wield knives take lives, and those who point pistols take aim as you bristle. The night holds secrets only the day can reveal. Still, The day cannot capture the sinister stillness and the darkness that shrouds nighttime. It makes you afraid.
That was a
Thank
very
you.
powerful interpretation of the Ides of March, Daun. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
You've picked up the images of, darkness associated with murder, mayhem, the graveyard shift, etc. in the modern world. And this darkness becomes synonymous with the Ides of March.
Yes.
That is the connection that you have worked on. So thank you so much, Daun. That was really very, very powerful. So now I will invite our next poet. Dr. Kenneth Maswabi was supposed to join. He hasn't. He's on emergency duty. So I got a message from him saying that he'll try to join. He may or may not be able to join. So then I will request Rupa to start her rendition first. And her poem is I'm really intrigued and impressed by the play on the letters that Rupa has, made in this side of March, the S and the Ides of March play that she has done in her poem. So that's rather nice. Okay. And Rupa, let me pull up your slide first, and then I'll introduce you to the other participants. Yeah, here we are. Rupa Anand is a spiritual seeker and a published writer. She's been writing since 2008. Her poems are an expression of images, thoughts, ideas, emotions, and events that somehow get etched upon her mind and psyche. She says there is magic in nature. I hope my poems will connect readers with the beauty and calm of the natural world. Rupa has a BA Honours in English Literature from Lady Shri Ram College, University of Delhi. A cancer survivor, she lives in New Delhi with her husband, daughter, and beloved cats. So Rupa, please go ahead with your poem.
Hello, everyone. And Rachna, thank you so much for inviting me on this forum. It's always a pleasure to be with Wise Owl. And there's no need to give a context for this poem because I think it is self-explanatory. It'll take me about 2 minutes. I recorded it, so I was just wondering it's a bit long. But anyway, it's in free verse, so here I go. This side of March. The soothsayer said, beware the Ides of March. Julius Caesar killed on a full moon night, never to rise again. I say, March has come to the forest, to my garden, where we pick salad leaves. The past year fades with winter as slanted sunlight falls on peach geraniums. The sun doesn't know he shines. The cat rubs his back in the brown mud with the pink pukachnar blossoms swirling above. Tongues of Sansevieria chat with the olive cacti, prickly and much taller than I can hope to be. The scarlet petunia and purple yellow pansies clown a bit. And yes, there's the deep burnished gold of the marigolds. Most poignant of all, that familiar cheep of the sunbird dangling or angling from an asparagus fern. The bulbul pair darts between palms, and the tailor bird looks for sisal twine to weave his house. Slumbering hornbills glide through barks of russet and emerald. The white eye dips in and out of the bird bath. A magpie robin whistles loud, and the tree pies dare to be raucous. Afternoon sees thin slivers of cloud drift overhead, and the evening wind changes its path. In the fading light, I wait for the koel to stir its song, whilst the resident kingfisher dives into the blue. Yes, the moon has a shimmer and a shine, like a glacier in the Himalayas. She doesn't know her power. It's twilight, and I watch her rise through wisps of cloud. Narrow bands of moonlight grow wider as they reach me, casting silver shadows to fall. I rise again. Yes, it's the Ides of March, of course. Thank you.
Thank you, Rupa, for this beautiful interpretation of the month of March with its profusion of spring images, you know, your scarlet petunia and your burnished gold of marigolds and the sunbird dangling at an angle. So that was really beautiful. The bands of silver, of course, suggest sadness, but at the same time, it's talking about renewal and rebirth and regeneration. So which is great, because March is basically spring, you know.
Yes.
So it brings with it all the connotations of spring, which means renewal, rebirth, regeneration, like I said. So thank you so much, Rupa. That was beautiful, and that was beautifully rendered as well. Yeah. So now I will invite Srinivas. You are there, Srinivas, and you need to turn on your camera, I think.
Yeah, I'm here. The camera is on as well. Yeah.
All right. So let me just pull up your slide first, and then I'll introduce you. So here is Srinivas. He's a phonologist by training and in thought. Srinivas S. teaches English at the Rishi Valley School, India. He has let accents, cricket, and poetry partake equally of his mind, and spends his free time marshalling his thoughts on these subjects, often while taking long walks. His writings have found a home in places such as the Amethyst Review, Borderless Journal, Narrow Road Journal, and the Hong Kong Review, as well as in a number of haiku journals. And of course, he happens to contribute regularly to the Vaisal. So Srinivas, the stage is all yours. Please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Yeah, thank you for the kind introduction. Honored to be here amidst this panel of poets. My poem focuses on the opposing opinions generally generated by the Ides of March, with specific emphasis on the tragic comedy that is life. I've always felt that life isn't all happiness and all sadness. I end the poem by focusing particularly on the life of someone who knew, a teacher who taught me, who is no more. So in a sense, it ends as a poem of mourning, but the lion's share of the poem focuses on the opposing opinions that the phenomenon, the day generates. So I'll begin. Ides of March. Through the grapevine, the wind blows in different voices, giving the 15th March full moon a virtue or vice of their own choice. Some call it inauspicious, remembering Shakespeare's Caesar, their fatal stabs, his final wounds and words. Others make it auspicious, if only to rebel against the tide of inveterate literary trends. Others still, who are seldom moved to take a stand, treat it as a full moon, no fuller nor more spotted than others. To this scribe, the Ides of March remains a reminder of life as a tragic comedy, and shines memory's light on the life of a man who, despite his best, gave Caesar's tragedy the colors of a comedy. Some 10 years later, he found death in the dregs of just one more drink. leaving a young wife and a younger daughter to face alone the following Ides of March.
Thank you, Srinivas. That was a very well-crafted poem. And I would call it a very complete poem in that it makes references to various interpretations of the Ides of March. And like you said, focuses on life as a tragicomedy. So that was very beautifully done. Thank you so much. Unfortunately, two of our participants haven't been able to join. Like I said, Dr. Kenneth Maswabi and William Doreski. William Doreski says that he's snowed in and there's a power outage, so he's not able to connect. He's requested we read out his poem. And let me see if I can find it. I'll just click on the slide, and then I think then after that we should be done. This is William Doreski. He lives in Peterborough, New Hampshire. He has taught at several colleges and universities, and his most recent book of poetry is Mist in Their Eyes. His essays, poetry, fiction, and reviews have appeared in various journals. He's a regular contributor and a great podcaster as well. In fact, he had sent me a recording of his poem, but for some reason, I'm not able to share it here. So I thought it would be better if I just read out the poem instead of trying to share the audio of the poem. And the poem is, again, simply called Ides of March. It reads, "The wooded dark expects me to believe, but up too early, I feel the stars excite themselves with fashionable grandeur. The moon healed like a scab. No regrets if I stepped into the silence of thawing appetites and dissolved. When I wink out and the cold exhumes my ashes, the birds will return from the weepy south, and foxes will hunt with renewed confidence, and beaver ponds will overflow with snow melt. Skyscrapers will stand more erect, and potholes will seal themselves in streets crossed by thousands of eager pedestrians daily. Museums proud of the paintings of Degas, Homer, Chardin, Van Gogh will open their tall bronze doors, and research libraries will place much, too much faith in computers. This will happen without my consent. But today, in the early dark, I'll drive to Boston and express, with the whisper of my passage, a sense of distance 3/4 of a lifetime has learned to master. Animals and early risers along the way will sense me and wonder what I have to say that causes the dawn to shudder, like a window shade lifted in a madhouse, casting hard light on faces we'd rather not face, especially alone with them. So that was the poem by William, and I wish he was here to read it out on his own, but I guess there's not a lot we can do about it. So I think we'll wind up this session. I would like to again thank you all for joining me today. We have walked through various interpretations of the Ides of March. I'm happy to say that every poem unveiled a different interpretation and layer of thought. Happily, none of them were restricted to or by the assassination of Julius Caesar. In fact, all of them, I'd say, connected the past with our present. So 3 cheers to that, and goodbye. Take care. Thank you once again.
Thanks a lot, Rachna, and thank you, everyone. It was lovely listening to all of you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, Rupa. Bye, Daun, Srinivas. Bye-bye. Thank you so much. Thanks, Amita. Thanks. I'm so glad you could join in.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.